Okay, and welcome everybody to the next in our series of country updates from ATMA, the Asia Talent Mobility Alliance. And this is a series of updates that we are doing, and we'll continue these updates periodically, just to help with knowledge share and upskilling our community throughout Asia. So today we're focusing on Singapore. So today I'm joined, very grateful for the star-studded panel we have today. We have Yang Li, who's a partner on the immigration team at Vialto Partners. We have Gaia Trinidad, who manages mobility and immigration at Stripe. And we also have Quinner Gui, who's a senior relocation specialist at Relo Network Asia. And I'll be asking them to introduce themselves a little bit later as they start their individual sessions. So in terms of the agenda today, so I will just kick things off and spend a few minutes explaining who and what ATMA is. And then we'll go into the updates. And similar to previous country updates, we'll be covering a number of key issues that are affecting our industry. So we'll start off with immigration, and Yang will be leading that. Then Quinner will look at the current kind of situation in the housing, education, and cost of living landscape in Singapore. And then finally, Gaia will be giving us some perspectives from a corporate client global mobility kind of function, and just kind of give us some talking points on what she's seeing from her kind of perspective on some of the trends and issues affecting them within Singapore. So first of all, if I can explain a little bit about ATMA. So as all of us who are sat in Asia, you know, we are in a very kind of dynamic region, and a very important region for talent mobility. In fact, a survey just before the pandemic showed that 40% of both receiving and sending locations for mobility was in Asia. So having such an important region within our industry, we've never actually had a trade organization focusing solely on talent mobility within Asia. And that's what we're trying to do, or what we are doing with ATMA. So ATMA stands for Asia Talent Mobility Alliance. It's a non-profit organization that will be actively supporting the talent mobility and relocation community in Asia. So it's set up purely to focus on the industry within Asia. So our mission is to be the authority on talent mobility for governments and businesses in Asia. And we'll be doing that through a focus on a number of pillars within the organization, one of them being an advocacy pillar. So we'll be advocating to governments to promote talent mobility within their policy making. We'll also have pillars around ESG and sustainability, as well as providing support to mobility professionals and stakeholders throughout Asia in terms of education and networking opportunities as well. And we have some really exciting programs on the education side that we'll be announcing very shortly. And finally, to reflect, embrace, and promote the distinctiveness of Asian countries, cultures, industries, and individuals within talent mobility. So as we know, Asia is a very diverse region with very distinct cultures, nuances, trends, issues within the talent mobility community. So having a trade organization focusing on the region with a community built up within each country will be able to support that kind of uniqueness and distinctiveness throughout the different countries within Asia. Okay, and finally, our vision is, you know, the end game is to enhance the innovation and development of talent mobility in Asia. So supporting individuals within our industry, advocating to governments to ensure that talent mobility as a function evolves, and we bring some innovative ideas, and also support the career journeys and growth of individuals within Asia. Okay, and we are very grateful to our foundation partners who have joined us in this quest and provided some very valuable funding to help us get this off the ground. So we have 3 foundation partners currently: Grable, ECA International, and Relo Network Asia, which is part of the Relo Japan group. So again, a heartfelt thanks to these organizations that are supporting this mission and providing the funding for us to really kind of start some of these programs and initiatives. Okay. So as I mentioned, it's a non-profit organization. So we have a team of people that are volunteering their time to launch ATMA. So you can see here the individuals that have been working on this over the past 2 years. And feel free to reach out to any of us if you're interested to learn more about ATMA or you want to support us in any way. And we will be launching the membership of ATMA next month. So look out for information on that, and please, support our mission and join ATMA and get involved any way you can. Okay. And just before we start, there is a Q&A box on the screen. So if you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A section, and then we'll try and save some time at the end to go through those questions. Okay. So without further ado, I'd like to pass now to Yang, who's a partner at Vialto Partners, to go through some of the immigration changes that are coming up. Yang, do you mind just introducing yourself? And while you do that, I'll pull up your slides.
Perfect. Happy to, Sean, and thank you very much to ATMA for putting on this session. I'm a strong advocate in terms of, sort of knowledge sharing and information sharing. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to share a little bit about what's sort of upcoming in Singapore. By way of introduction, my name is Yang. I am a partner based in Singapore. I lead our immigration practice for Asia Pacific. And I work closely with my fellow colleagues within Vialto to really bring together the full sort of end-to-end mobility solution. So Vialto, as I'm sure many of you know, is a tech-enabled people-first global mobility company. We came out of previously known as PwC Global Mobility, and we're now really focused on digitally enabling our digital sort of solution on all things cross-border compliance in areas of tax, immigration, business travel, rewards, compensation, everything of that sort. So great to be with you today, and my ask for today is to distill the Compass updates in 10 minutes. I will do my absolute best. I'm going to make a couple of assumptions on how the attendees and the audience know about Compass, and we'll dive right into the Compass framework. Encourage everyone to ask questions along the way, and then we'll do our best to answer those. So with that, maybe next slide, please. Okay, so as a recap, Compass stands for complementarity framework. So essentially the ethos of this is to really enable global talent to come into Singapore to support the complementarity of the overall workforce. I'm sure everyone has seen sort of the breakdown of the points, but it is essentially a points system, which we'll see in a couple of slides later. The key takeaway on Compass is a couple of things. It is a two-stage process. So right now, as everyone knows, you can go into MOM, you can do an assessment of pure salary level, and it will give you an estimate of whether or not someone will be able to qualify. From Compass, from September this year, it will be a two-stage. So there's a requirement in terms of minimum salary, and then once you pass the minimum salary, then you go into stage 2, which is the number of points, which is the sort of passing points of Compass. A couple of key takeaways from this slide. I won't read out all of it, but essentially it will take effect from September of this year, and it will take effect for renewals existing, i.e. your existing population, from September of next year, and that goes that is linked to the expiry date of the passes. A couple of exemptions that are available, which you would expect, which is more or less linked to the existing FCF exemption, which are your salary level currently at 22,500 per month, your ICTs, and your EPs for a duration of 1 month or less. Now, a couple of questions that we have received from clients around this is there a quota? Just to reassure everyone, there is no quota imposed on EPs, and the Compass framework is specifically applicable to EPs. Another couple of questions that we've received is what happens from that exemption threshold of 22,500. Now, we do expect that the fixed monthly threshold as it stands right now, which warrants the exemption, will be indexed on a year-to-year basis, according to the nature of the economy. So that's the sort of a nutshell as a recap of what Compass is. With that, we'll move on to the next slide, please. So this is the actual framework itself. I'm sure everyone has seen this. It talks about the individual attributes and the firm attributes. Due to the short time frame that we have, there's a couple of hints and tips that I want to offer the wider audience. Now, when we're looking at salary, the key aspect is really the fixed monthly salary. So what that means is your base plus any fixed monthly allowance. We have had discussions with numerous clients around what about CPF encashment, what about other aspects, for example, schooling, housing, so on and so forth. Those can all be counted as fixed monthly salary as long as they're payable on a month-to-month basis. And this is where, Quayam, I'm sure you'll touch upon a little bit later as well. The other factor just to keep in mind when it comes to qualification, this is a question that we get asked quite often. I'm sure everyone has seen the top tier institutions. They will be revised, and I'll share with you in terms of how often they will be revised. But the key takeaway in terms of qualification is if you need the points, then the qualification needs to be authenticated and verified. And recently, I think it was 2 days ago, the MOM released an updated list of the certificates. It has to be done by one of those organizations. Now, if you don't need the points, for example, if you have a very senior executive who earns, sufficient on their own to pass the Compass points without relying on the qualification, you don't need to have the education verified by way of, you don't need to declare that for the purpose of Compass. So just want to highlight level, give you some hints and tips in terms of how Compass will work. So on the left, you have the salary, the qualification. On the right, you have the diversity and the local PMET, local employment. I'm sure everyone knows now, hopefully, where to find those data. If you don't know, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to guide everyone on the call. But essentially, the diversity comes down to the passport of the individual, which means if the individual is a PR, yet they hold passport of US or UK, they will count count towards the diversity of your overall population. Questions that we get often asked is, what about dual nationals? That is definitely consideration. So going back to the very beginning in terms of intake of information, key question that you may want to ask is, do you hold any other nationality? And that may also form a part of your overall strategic review when it comes to Compass assessment. The local employment is really, really important. And this is where it's benchmarked against your local or your industry sector. Often we get asked about the question of, okay, well, my sector is in this, but actually we do something else. It's a wider conversation, it's a wider discussion that probably needs to take place within the organization as to whether or not your classification is under the right sector. But essentially, what the points dictate is that you will be measured against similar companies within your sector in terms of your local support for local employment. And the end goal that, obviously we want to see, and, from a ministry point of view, they want to see is there is that strong support for local employment. So high level, this is what Compass framework is. And then in addition to that, you come across the bonus criteria, which is your skills bonus and also your strategic economic priority bonuses. On the skills bonus, I will have to say, actually, for all of the bonus criteria, a key highlight is if you do need to rely on the bonus criteria, it's probably going to be a little bit more onerous for either the company or the individual. So what I mean by that is if you have an individual who needs to rely on the additional points that come from the skills occupation list, there is a little bit more rigor in terms of the information, the details, and the documentation that you would need to obtain for the purpose of seeking that additional points. The bonus points are there to really elevate, but really, I think from a corporation point of view, what you would be looking at is how can I maximize the points available under the standard foundation criteria before I have to tap on to the bonus criteria. Another question that we get asked quite often is, if someone gets 50 versus someone gets 100 points, does that make a difference? As long as you pass, it should make a difference in terms of where they are in the priority queue. Right now, we're seeing very quick turnarounds in terms of processing, so it shouldn't really matter. As long as they pass the Compass 40 base points, then they should be eligible for an EP. So I'm very conscious of time. I'm going to move on to the next slide if that's possible, Sean. Couple of important timelines. Everyone would have seen all the information updated. Salary has also been updated back in May. And then September is when the Compass will kick in, and September next year will be when it takes effect for existing population. A couple of key call out points from this slide is that there will be a new assessment tool made available. This will replace the existing SAT tool that sits on the MOM website. However, it will be embedded within your corporate login. So a key question that we get often asked from companies who have separate mobility or perhaps HR functions to talent acquisition functions is, how can I enable our talent acquisition function, who currently does the SAT, to do an assessment? We are, as Vialto, we are looking at a calculation solution to offer to the wider public for free, to enable sort of our broader support to the industry as well. So it's something to keep in mind, and we'll keep everyone updated on that. So next slide, please, if you will, Sean. How am I going for time? Okay. Great, fantastic. The next part I just wanted to cover is the frequency of update. The reason why this is important is because your C3 and C4 will be updated on a month-to-month basis. But how it's updated is based on aggregate data for the past 3 months before. So in the example of your support for local PMETs, it is looking at an average data from the last 3 months prior to the date of update. So in other words, to give you an example, if I'm looking at the data for the month of July, I'm really looking at the average of 3 months, 3 months prior to July in terms of affecting the number that I'm seeing right now. Similarly, the diversity will be the same. It will be updated 6th of every month. So I encourage everyone to sort of go in on the 6th of every month just to check this, the statistics of C3 and C4, just to make sure that nothing substantially changes. I think one of the key findings that we've seen, especially for smaller organization, is that the C3 and C4 changes so quickly and so drastically because you have a smaller number to work from. So it is an area where corporations will need to pay closer attention to, because if you've done the assessment for the individual in the month of June and they're not coming out until September, you have a big time frame when the numbers could shift, perhaps in your favor or perhaps not in the individual's favor. So it's something to be mindful of, because at the end of the day, from a Compass assessment point of view, it will be done at point of application, and that applies to both the age, that applies to both the salary, that applies for diversity as well as local employment. For the salary portion, the latest update was back in May. It's going to be updated on a yearly basis every March. This is important because when you do an overview analysis of your entire population, you need to make sure that whatever data that you're using right now for the salary will be the same benchmark that you're using, or will be the updated benchmark that you will be using at the time of renewal. This is very important as well. Again, qualification we talked about a little bit before. There is a list of top tier institutions. Perhaps some organizations may agree or disagree with the list, but it will be reviewed every March, and it will take effect from September of that year. Common question that we get asked is, can I go ahead and have all my existing population education verified? The answer is yes. How we will work in the background is the education verification is tied to the FIN number. So for your existing population, if they haven't undergone a verification process already, you can choose to do so and avoid hopefully some bottleneck closer to the timeline to get that process underway, because it will take some time to get that verification in place before you can file the application itself. Again, I know I'm going through this very, very quickly. There's a lot of information to take in, so feel free to reach out to myself if you want a deeper dive. Finally, the bonus points. It will be updated for the skills occupation list March of every year and will be reset every 3 years. What that means, and importantly for those who have a ongoing discussion with your industry bodies, is the shortage list represents what is required in the market, what is required from an organization point of view. So where you do have dialogues directly, perhaps with your industry bodies, please feel free to feed those shortage lists or those occupation shortage lists to those bodies, because it will play a part in terms of how those occupations are updated on an annual or resetted on a 3-year basis. So with that, I very quickly overview of frequency of update, but maybe next slide, please, just to run you through. I'm not going to go through every single point, but just to give you a sense of the simulations that we have typically run for clients where there's different profiles at play. And you can see, we've color coded in terms of where you're not getting any point, where the individual is not getting any points in gray. The teal color for 10 points, and then the darker green as the 20 points. You can see for the employee A profile, even though it's only slightly changes from employee B and C, the employee A unfortunately can't claim any points due to diversity, local employment, and skills occupation. Employee B can obtain additional points and is able to pass due to top tier university and also the skills occupation. But employee C gets an additional 10 points because the nationality makeup is less than 1/3 of the total diversity, which is why they can claim full 20 points for the skill, as opposed to employee B, who only obtains 10 points. We will, I believe, Sean, share these slides after the session. So feel free to take a deeper dive into it and also reach out to us if you have any questions. But the important takeaway for this is really need to deep dive into all your individual population right now for business continuity's sake, just to make sure that they're able to renew at point of renewal. So with that, maybe next slide, please. So what does this mean? I think the key takeaway from Compass is we do see a lot more focus on data-driven decisions and data-driven process from the MOM point of view, but also it encourages us and certainly our clients to be more data-focused as well. So we do have a tool that is available that will allow us to have a very macro assessment of your existing population as it stands against the Compass criteria. We do have a tool that effectively is able to extract all the key information that goes onto an application in terms of all your C1 through to C5 assessment criteria. And it will essentially, allow us to do a bulk an analytics for existing population. And we've done, recent project that we've done is for up to 2,000 plus employees in terms of assessing every single person against the Compass requirement at time of renewal to look at the overall impact for their overall population. So it's a really powerful tool, and we're happy to sort of do a deeper dive into this. So with that, I'll move on to the final slide. Hopefully I'm well within my 10 minutes, but essentially this is how we can help. We do have a solution for all of the aspect of manpower analytics, internal review and engagement. A big part to it is stakeholder engagement, and I'm sure Gail would probably talk more on that as well, is to make sure that the organisation and the key stakeholders, the business units, are aware of what's coming, and we can certainly help you to do that as well. Some of the other aspect in terms of just getting all of the data, the information, the documents ready for Compass is really, really key as well, just to make sure that once September hits or even before then, your organisation is well prepared for all the upcoming changes. So with that, hopefully I've kept to time, and hopefully I've
Thank you,
condensed as much as I could in the 10 minutes. But again, offers there in terms of any additional questions, you can feel free to ask in this session, or feel free to reach out to me as well directly. Back to you, Sean.
Wonderful. That's a really in-depth overview. Thanks for that. It's very useful. So we'll move on. I'll go back to the slides. Yes, now we've got the housing update. So Quina, can I pass to you, please?
Thank you, Sean. Good afternoon. I'm Quina from Relo Network Singapore. So we are the destination service provider, primarily taking care of home finding, school searches, area orientations, and settling programs such as local bank account applications, internet utilities applications, and introduction to reliable service providers such as domestic helper agency, furniture rental company, and car leasing company, and so on and so forth. I guess housing market has been a hot topic of discussion since 2022. So without further ado, please allow me to provide some updates. Okay, property rental market remains strong. Yeah. The unprecedented demand and surging rent of Singapore has been well documented since 2022, and is not uncommon to come across rental renewal or new leases increasing at more than 50% in 2022. The growth continues in 2023. Although new housing completed projects in 2022 has eased some of the supply limitations in 2023, however, demands continue to be strong. We see prices stabilizing. However, like I say, we expect a slower growth rate in 2022, but in 2023 compared to 2022. Key drivers for demand continue to be the requirements for work from home due to hybrid working arrangement, more local renting due to high property prices and increased taxes, and of course, the continued influx of expat. In particular, demand is high for larger properties with 4 to 5 bedrooms, landed houses, and cluster houses with communal facilities. The trend of commission being payable to the tenant's realtor emerged in 2022 and remains the norm in 2023. It's still largely a landlord's market. Tenant profiling remains a commonplace in the market. Having said that, we have witnessed some assignees able to close some property rentals at below asking rents in recent months, and realtors are also able to co-broke or co-share the commissions with landlord's rep, especially for higher rental range from 10,000 Singapore dollars and above. And we also have witnessed some assignees able to secure property at a faster lead time and with more viewing opportunities, and that allows us to reduce the need to extend the service apartment booking in recent months. And this is a good relief to many corporates and assignees because service apartment prices has become expensive and there is very limited availability at the top and mid-tier service apartment, for example, properties at Shangri-La, Escort, and Frasers. So advanced booking is key. And also there are very limited availability for bigger size unit, for example, the 3 and 4 bedrooms property, and families with pets will face even more challenges because many of these properties do not allow pets or they impose strict rules and additional surcharge. So shall we move on to the next slides on education updates, which is education remains one of the top priorities for families with children. So the reputation of international school in Singapore is very good. There are more than 60 schools to choose from IB curriculum to British and American syllabus, and beyond that you have French, Australian, German, Korean, Japanese, Dutch, and so on. Places are generally available. However, early applications is key, especially for top-tier schools, whereby the waitlist order is actually tied to the date of applications. Most of these schools allows applications as early as 3 years in advance, and many of them allow rolling enrollments. Other than perhaps United World College and Tanglin Trust, they have a fixed cycle of applications. They usually require submissions in February for August intake. And for some schools with special learning support will be limited as well, because each class only allocates 1 or 2 places. It is advisable to have backup schools when applying for top-tier schools, as gaining a place remains a significant challenge in places such as Singapore American School, Tanglin Trust, and United World College. The wait lists are usually up to 2 years. Some of these top-tier schools offer guaranteed placement rights. However, it comes with a hefty price tag. For example, in United World College, to subscribe to a place in guaranteed placement rights will cost a corporate $243,000. So annual tuition fee for international school range from $20,000 to $60,000, depending on several factors. For example, the prestige and reputation of the school, the grade level, curriculum offered, and the facilities provided. Access to local government school is extremely limited for foreigners. Admission to local schools are not guaranteed for international candidates and is subject to the centralized test, which is performance of the centralized test, which is conducted once a year. Allocation to local school is solely determined by Ministry of Education. The applicants do not have a choice of the school. Okay, shall we move on to the last slide on cost of living updates? So cost of living in Singapore is on the rise. Coming out of COVID-19 pandemic, Singapore economy was immediately hit by the invasion of Russia in Ukraine, which led to higher commodity and food prices around the world. At the same time, a global slowdown in the consumer's demand has also slammed many MNCs, especially the tech industry, which resulted in a high series of retrenchment. However, more robust growth in China, underpinned by its economic reopening, could give a boost to Singapore economy. Singapore could potentially export more goods and see a higher influx of Chinese tourists. Having said that, the downside risk remained, given the geopolitical instability with interest rate hikes and recessionary threat looming over major trade partners. Overall, inflation is expected to decrease from 6.1% in 2022 to 5% in 2023 and further to 3.1% in 2024. Causes of inflation are higher oil, utilities and food prices, increase in goods and services tax from 7% to 8% in January 2023 and soon to be 9% in January 2024. There's also tightening of monetary policy by MAS, Monetary Authority of Singapore. This has caused Singapore currency to strengthen by 7.8% against a basket of currencies of major trade partners. Tighter local labor market has resulted in higher cost of services, and pent-up demand has resulted in higher consumer spending. People are dining out, traveling, and buying more cars than before, propelling the certificate of entitlement to own a car to beyond $100,000 Singapore dollars. Fast increasing costs of accommodation and private transport has resulted in Singapore to be one of the most expensive cities to live in. In fact, in the recent publication in June 2023 by ECA International, has ranked Singapore to be the 5th most expensive global destination for expats from its 13th position in 2022. So with that, it concludes my sharing in the afternoon. Thank you for listening. I'll hand the floor over to Gia, who will walk you through the global mobility landscape.
Thanks, Quinna.
Well, thank you so much, Quinna and Sean. Good day, everybody. That's a great pace so far, and I just need to keep the pace as well. So I'm Gia Trinidad, and I'm the Global Mobility and Immigration Business Partner looking after Asia Pacific, Europe, and the Middle East at Stripe. We are a financial services and software company, dual headquartered in California, US, as well as in Dublin, Ireland. So I'll start with a perspective that our jobs really are consistently exciting because it's also constantly evolving. And with that, there are countless opportunities to innovate and shape our mobility programs workflows, service delivery systems, not just to cope with the changing times and overall climate evolution, but also to maintain, even elevate the experience for respective clients and users. And this platform right here by ATMA is perfect for that. So thank you again for the opportunity to share some insights today. What I'll share includes observations from recent benchmarking initiatives done across APAC, and also some insights from peers in the industry. So with that, I'll start off with immigration. With the changes in the immigration landscape in Singapore specifically, that Yang done a great job in trying to squeeze in 10 minutes today. The approach by most companies have been holistic. So it's no longer just addressing what's changing right now or what may take effect in a few months' time, but really doing a holistic health check of respective hiring practices and immigration programs and changing what needs to be changed now to avoid having hurdles in the future. I guess in some way we're fortunate that the Singapore government, the Ministry of Manpower, has helped us gear to that direction through time. The adjustment in MOM regulations have been, I would say, gradual in the span of the past 20 years, really giving sponsoring companies the opportunity to adjust their businesses and hiring practices accordingly. So starting with the introduction of SPAS and Personalized Employment Pass in 2004 and 2007 respectively, the consolidation of employment pass subcategories, which streamlined the eligibility and application process for this work pass type sometime in 2011, to the launch of the Fair Consideration Framework job advertisement requirements in 2014, and from then, the consistent increase in qualifying salary for both SPAS and EP. And through those years, we've also seen the tightening and firmed up implementation of labor market testing requirements. And the ministry also appeared to have looked into even the tiniest details, which makes sense even from an administrative perspective as well, such as the total period or number of days a job advertisement posting should be up for maturity. So that being stretched from 14 to 28 calendar days in 2020, and then recently restored to a 14-day posting period. So for some companies in the tech space, there were options launched like the Economic Development Board's Tech Pass, which gave an alternative work pass sponsorship to attract pioneers, leaders, game changers in the tech world. And of course, the most recent introduction of the more popular option, which is the Overseas Networks and Expertise, or the ONE Pass, which was also open to other industries and not exclusive to tech. With a points-based system, Compass, taking effect by September, the preparation game plan really is to fortify every aspect of the mobility and recruitment programs. Foundationally, and Yang touched on this earlier, it's really important that the talent and acquisition team, hiring managers, and other business stakeholders should be aligned with the priority, which is to strengthen the Singapore core. And they should also understand the eligibility criteria for foreign talents immigration sponsorship now. So for most companies, educating their recruiters or talent acquisition team members and extending that to other business stakeholders has been one of the top priorities. So they either do in-house training or they lean in with their immigration councils or service providers to partner in tailoring and conducting webinars or learning sessions that will really equip them or empower them as co-gatekeepers of the immigration and recruitment practices. Another focus area is on data integrity. So the Compass-related administration will require accurate declarations and close monitoring to be a step ahead in managing the foreign talent population. So especially as a Compass framework applies for existing employment pass renewals by next year. For some companies, they took the lead Compass implementation to transition into better media management tools, or again, lean in respective immigration councils or service providers for a tighter rigor in data management and reporting. For most companies, part of this prep work is to actually analyze the current population that they have, check pass holders who will no longer meet the minimum points required for the EP renewals, and make sure that they have options open for those employees come September 2024. For others, they carved out specific immigration programs to sponsor for personalized employment passes, permanent residency or ONE pass to transition as many employees as they can to these other immigration statuses in Singapore. And one other observation is that it doesn't have to be a full sponsorship. Some companies would just engage their immigration service provider to conduct learning sessions on how to actually prepare a robust PR application in Singapore, and then let employees still self-manage their application process. Others conduct or provide one-pagers on how to apply for ONE Pass if you're eligible for it. So even those little initiatives could actually go a long way to help your employees as well make that decision on how individually they can prepare for the upcoming changes with the Compass introduction by September. Last focus area that I want to highlight is in looking into the bonus criteria of the government and maximizing what can be done to contribute to the strategic economic priorities. So as highlighted by Yang earlier, it's important that companies focus on the foundational criteria set in Compass, but qualifying for the bonus criteria may also come in handy in getting certain applications across to meet the minimum required points. So depending on the nature of your business, leverage this opportunity and partner closely with your respective government agencies, such as the Economic Development Board, Singapore Tourism Board, Enterprise SG, and a few others, to participate in the open programs and meet the eligibility criteria to earn additional Compass points. So again, number one, focusing on data integrity. Two, empowering recruiters, hiring managers, and other business stakeholders who are co-gatekeepers in managing hiring practices and immigration programs. And lastly, leveraging on the different government initiatives that will help companies earn additional points. I'll pause there. Any questions before I keep talking? Okay, I see the Q&A and the chat box is empty. Cool, so I'll just keep talking. All right, moving on. So in terms of relocation, the points highlighted by Quinner resonate with me. It was honestly a weird feeling to be challenged in selling a potential move to Singapore, because up until recently, who wouldn't want to move to Singapore? And it's consistent across talent and age profiles now. So single employees between 25 to 40 years old worry about the cost of living in Singapore and the hike in rent rates, in the same way that an employee with 3 or 4 accompanying dependents get concerned about those financial aspects of wealth. And of course, in most cases, the cost of schooling for children and limited work rights for accompanying spouses become a deal breaker too. So there's really no one way that will solve these concerns while still maintaining cost efficiency for the company, but extended flexibility on mobility program management goes a long way. So it can be as literal as introducing flexible benefits that will allow employees to allot their relocation allowance or benefits to the aspects of their relocation that are most important to them, or flexibility in terms of reviewing relocation benefits and exception criteria more often to make the necessary adjustments quicker. For instance, some companies were previously authorizing destination service providers once the immigration approvals are received. Now, for these companies, IPAs are no longer a prerequisite for DSP service initiations, as they understand and appreciate the tight real estate market in Singapore right now. And this gives an opportunity for early planning and possibly minimizing the temporary housing extensions that may be necessary for some employees who can't find an available permanent housing suitable for them. Of course, on top of all that, it's important to discuss relocation scenarios with utmost transparency to the employees. And it's important that relocation management companies, or whoever your partner is in terms of managing relocation logistics, they function as the extension of the company's mobility team when speaking with the employees, because it will empower them to weigh pros and cons of moving into a role in Singapore before finally arriving at a decision. So this is one aspect that has been deemed to be appreciated by employees as they make such an important decision, not just for their careers, but also for their families. All right, I know I just breezed through that, but that's all the key or top highlights that I wanted to go through today. So over to you, Sean.
Thank you. And you all did an amazing job in delivering so much content in a limited amount of time. So thank you, everybody. Great job. So we've come to the end of our allotted time. I just want to share There we go. So we have some QR codes there. One will, on the first on the left, will get you notified for upcoming ATMA events. And the other one on the right will give you information on the next webinar. So we have a few more country updates to come. We have Japan, Taiwan, and India. So please register for those. And a recording of this webinar will be available within a few days. And you'll see a link for that. And like I said, you know, we're building this alliance, and we're looking for people that, you know, believe in the mission and want to help and support the community. So please feel free to reach out if you're interested to find out more or willing to support. And we will be launching the membership very soon. And members will get access to exclusive content and some really exciting programs. So please look out for that as well. So that's it from us for today. Once again, I'd like to thank all of our amazing panelists, Yang, Quina, and Gaia. Amazing presentations, some really valuable kind of sharing there and knowledge. So thank you for that. And yeah, once again, see you hopefully at the next webinar. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you, everyone.